It's not about what you have, it's about who you have. It's not about where you live, it's about how you live. And it's not about what you do, it's about why you do it. Welcome to the Momenticize podcast. Today I have got a really, really special guest. Somebody who's been my number one idol, my number one male idol my whole life. He's taught me how to dream. He showed me how to bring dreams into reality. In this podcast, we're going to talk about all the three major dreams that he brought to life. You know, one that he started just at 19 years old. He said, hey, at 19 years old, I want to become a professional golfer. And he made that happen. We unfold all of those dreams, the entire story, and we dive deep into the mind of the one and only Chris Velde. You've been able to execute on all of your dreams. You're not just a dreamer, but you've always been able to follow through on them as well. Just for a little bit of context for people, at 18 years old, you dreamt of becoming a professional golfer. The outcome was you were a European Tour player and the best golfer in the Netherlands for a stint of time. Then you dreamt up of becoming a coach and you won the World Cup. Then you dreamt up of running your own golf course, and the outcome was the #1 resort in the Pacific Northwest. You've always executed on your dreams. And what I want to unpack in this podcast is, how did you make it happen? What were the ingredients to actually execute and make each one of those dreams come to life?
You know, it's a great question. The answer it is simple, but it's not simple. When I think about that, I think my answer to that immediately is start with the end in mind. So you have to have a plan. You have to know where you want to go with it. If I were to take one of those three things, like wanting to be a professional golfer, that's an easy one to see. I wanted to be on tour. You need to assess where you are. You need to assess what's going well, what's not going well, and how you're going to get to the next step. And then the hard part of it is constantly reassessing, constantly looking at, oh, I'm not doing this well enough. I got to work on this. I got to work on that. Or I've done this great. I just got to maintain that and go further there. I feel very fortunate that I learned a lot of this stuff from my parents. I mean, my mom is super competitive, and if you're not competitive, you're not going to survive around her. You know, everyone thinks I'm the most competitive person they ever met, but I know one lady who's more. But you know, and I'm grateful for that. I mean, sometimes I don't. I think I'm too competitive, but at the same time, I think if you don't have that, if you don't have that intense desire to win or to get somewhere, you got to find it. If you don't have a passion for it, you're not going to get there. If you don't say, I want to get to the finish line, I want to get here, then you're not going to get there. Another example was just like when I was coaching, you know, the federation, Holland's a small country. It's not a big golf power nation. Yeah. And I came in and I was like, hey, I'd been a tour player. What are we doing to get these boys and girls to the next level? You know, it's one thing to try and make them good amateurs. We want to create, we're spending a lot of money in the federation to coach them, to train them, to send them to tournaments. What's the next level? And the next level was our goal. We set a goal with the federation to get someone on the Ryder Cup or Solheim Cup. And we succeeded with that when Crystal Bouillon, Dutch woman, made the Solheim Cup and played in Ireland for the European team. So those are steps. I guess what I'm saying is you're shooting above and beyond where you actually want to go. So you're always moving the finish line further to make yourself better. Because you can accept, you know, I can accept being a good Challenge Tour player or European Tour player, but I wanted to get better. And then you have to, at a certain point, you know, look at where you are. When I was playing the tour, I was a journeyman. I'm a talented golfer. I'm good enough to be out there on tour, but I also had 3 kids at home, had a wife and 3 kids. And what's that doing to your family? So at a certain point, after 10 or 12 years, I had to make the decision, do I want to keep doing that? And that's when I pivoted and went into coaching. And then after that, I pivoted and went into, you know, golf course, building a golf course. And again, you you've got to have that end in mind. If you don't have that, if you don't have the goal where you're trying to get to, you're not going to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to begin with the end in mind, and it's something you've instilled in all your children. It's something that's really helped me as I continue to dream and create goals. There's another thing to do the pivot and make those transitions, but to become the best. It wasn't like you just pivoted, right? So at 18, you decided didn't play any golf, and then you decided to become a professional golfer. You began with the end in mind. But what I really admire about you is that sickening work ethic that comes with that then, right? The sickening work ethic. I mean, can you tell the story about when you decided you were going to be a golfer? Can you just touch base on what that was, how much work you had to do, and what was behind the scenes there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another great question you're asking, but it's like, hey, I'm here right now. Mm-hmm. And I think I talked about it another time with you about being a lifelong learner. And your mom and I, we decided, when we got married, when we met, we were going to keep learning and pushing each other. And you've got to keep reading books and getting information and figuring out where am I compared to my competition? Where am I compared to this? What do I need to do better to make every step better? And that lifelong learning stuff, the sickening work ethic, talent takes you so far. Talent, I mean, you have to be talented. If you're not talented, you're not going to play at that level. You're not going to win amateur events. But once you have that talent, it's like, I'll break it into these categories. I'll break down the golf game into like, what's my short game? What's my putting? What's my full swing? Now I'm going to spend, I don't know, 10,000 hours making my full swing better, or my putting better, or my short game better. And when you do that, when you break it down and make it that simple, that sickening work ethic, that's stuff, that I've looked at a lot of people. I used to look at Muhammad Ali stuff and how hard he worked, and where these people come from to get to the next level. And that's what you have to do, is you say, okay, hey, one thing, I've got talent. I know I know my end in mind, but who can I instill? Who can I find? I found the best swing coach in Holland. My swing was not great, so I found a really good swing coach. We started putting hours and hours, and I can tell you one thing for sure. Anybody who's really good at what they do wants to share that with you. So Tom O'Mahony, my swing coach, he wanted me to get better. He wanted to get to the next level with me. That makes him a better coach. So he has to push himself. I'm pushing myself. He's pushing himself. And then I went to, Dave Pell's short game school. He's one of the best golf gurus in the world for short game. Learned more about that and got better at that. So hours and hours. And, again, I talked about my family. At a certain point, you're saying, okay, I'm spending 70, 80 hours a week working on my golf game and traveling and doing all this stuff. In the long run, it shouldn't be at a detriment to your family. Mm. It should be alongside it. You need a partner. You need somebody that's going to help you get there, because now that I'm a grandfather, I look back and I go, hey, I'm glad a lot of my friends' families didn't survive it. I feel extremely fortunate that your mom, my wife, and I have a sickening work ethic together, intensity together. I mean, it's not always, I'm not saying it's always hunky-dory, but I'll tell you what, we have this willingness to fight through it, battle through stuff, and figure out and get to the next level. And that's, I think you're asking that. I mean, I'm 60 years old now, and I set a goal for myself to run 60 kilometers in a day, inspired partly by you with your ultra marathon stuff.
With 2 knee replacements.
Well, yeah. But I'll tell you what. But I tell you what. Again, I set up a plan for myself back in March, and I started running. 5 miles, a couple 2-milers, a couple 5-milers. Then now I'm up to 15 to 20 miles in certain sessions to get to that idea where if I can do, it's 18.6 mile loops. If I can do that, I've got 37.2, that's 60 kilometers before I'm 61. So you set a goal, and then I've put a lot of work into it this summer.
Yeah.
And, you lose weight, you figure it out, and okay, how do I keep myself going without, there's a time where you can overwork.
Mm-hmm.
You got to look at that too. You got to pivot from that.
Yeah. One of the things, what I'm hearing you say is you begin with the end in mind, make the declaration of the dream, then create a plan behind it. Don't just go after it willy-nilly. Create a plan, find the best mentors that you can find the best people you can find, and then execute on that plan, which you've always shown me how to do. The one thing I want to note on when you decided to become a professional golfer, it's not just like, oh, I'm going to train at it. It was every single day with 0 days off for 4 years.
Yes, that's a great point. I mean, I lived it. I breathed it. Your poor mother had to watch me live it and breathe it. But it was like I didn't take a day off. We were living in Florida for a while. I didn't take Christmas off. The course was closed, but I talked to the general manager. Can I go out and hit balls? No problem. Yeah. So, I did something every single day. I started golf at a later age, at 19 years old, trying to catch up with people that had, started when they were younger, and so I had to put the hours in to catch up.
What about during that whole journey, you're putting the work in, what about the moments that everything's working against you? Did you ever feel like quitting, or did you ever feel like stopping, and how did you overcome that?
Okay, if anybody, part of my friendship, anybody ever tells you that it's not tough and they're going to have bad days, they're fucking lying to you. Yeah. I mean, Tiger Woods, the best golfer of all time. I guarantee you Jack Nicklaus went through stages when he you can't find the fairway, you can't figure out what's going on. It's just a dip. And I had my fair share of those dips. What it is get back to the fundamentals and work on those basic fundamentals that got you to where you are. Stick with it, and you never know. Growth goes in plateaus. It's not just a straight line to the top. It's like, I'm getting better. Oh, I just plateaued, and maybe even a little dip, and then it goes back up. And when it goes back up, you hit sort of these inflection points. When you hit these inflection points, ride them. But I'll tell you what, you don't learn from the inflection points going up. You learn from the dip. You learn from the mistakes you made. You learn when you're in that bad spot, that's when your best learning can come. If you're open to it, if you're open to looking at and saying, hey, I'm not doing this right. I'm not doing that right. And that's where, again, your mother, my wife, is my partner in life. And I mean, she hates when I say this, but she's one of the smartest people I ever met, as far as looking at a process and breaking it down. So when I was struggling with stuff in golf, in coaching, and in the business thing, she's able to look at the whole process and say, hey, maybe we can work on this, or maybe we can work on that and make it better. And we did that together. And I think that I feel fortunate again because of that, because we're still together and we've worked through a lot of stuff. Hard work. You want to talk about hard work? I talk to her because she knows what hard work is.
Yeah, you both do. You guys instilled that not just through saying it, but really leading by action in your children. And I'm so grateful. You guys have been some of the best mentors in my life. One of the things, that you also taught me as I was going through my career and I was trying to play soccer was the fact that what you need to do in every moment, especially if you're trying to become a champion, trying to become the best, is ask yourself, you said it earlier, but ask yourself, what went well? What didn't go so well? And what am I going to do to improve on it? Mm-hmm. Right? And those three questions, they force you to reflect, to analyze, and then to come up with a plan on what you need to work on.
Yes.
And that just becomes a loop over and over and over and over until you just get better and better and better. And I think that that's a really key thing when you're doing something, right? What went well? What didn't go so well? And then what am I going to do to improve on it? I have a question, because what happened in my career, I had the whole infrastructure set up for me. I had a family that was there to support me. I had talent. But when I reflect on what happened with me is I got distracted. So I got distracted by the party scene specifically. How did you deal with any distractions that came into your life, push them aside and just fortify through and create to become the actual best, right? Where I fell short, how did you get rid of those distractions and fortify through them?
I think you're underselling yourself a little bit. You did have some distractions, but you fought through them. Mm. I think fighting through those things are let's go back to that. What am I doing well? What am I not doing well? What's how we can make it better? How we are going to, that's enlisting people around you to make it better, because you're going to have things that are problems. That actually comes from the 1 Minute Manager, Ken Blanchard, a great book. I think that people, I know you're an avid reader, and you have to keep reading and learning. And that's one of them. But to try to answer that question as clearly as possible, there's roadblocks. There's things in your way. There's ways to get around them. If you have an undogged desire to get to the goal, you'll go through a dip. You'll go through a place. You'll go through some dark spots. I mean, I did. I kept learning and working on. When you're on the tour, it's as confrontational as any sport in the world, because you don't make the cut, you make no money. You get to the end of the season, you're not in the top. Back then it was top 120 on the European tour. You don't have a job next year. You have to go back to tour school and requalify for your job. That happened a lot to me. As I stayed out there for 12 years, 7 full years on the tour and 5 years on the challenge tour. But that's a fight. That's a battle. And it's confronting. I think what I was really good at, and I think that people that succeed are the ones that have the ability to go find other, not just swing coaches or whatever, but mental coaches, physical fitness coaches, something to get you through it. Because there's times when I wanted to quit. There's times you just like, what am I doing this for? Where am I going with this? And, it's battling through it. I mean, a period of time, Tony Robbins was huge back right around when you were born. I still remember we were in South Carolina and we bought this, 24 cassette, little cassette
cassettes back in the day, right?
And we're popping in the car and we're listening to it and we're going through all the stuff and we're trying all these things, and I'm trying to develop anchors, NLP anchors for good feelings and get rid of the bad feelings. And I just kept learning about how positivity and emotions, your face has I think 80 muscles in it. And if you smile, it gives off different chemical reactions than if you frown or you're depressed. So a lot of people do turn to, they want to change their state with other things. And I was fortunate, our family has some addictive stuff in it. You can get easily hooked on something. I'd have to say I'm addicted to coffee, but but there's other things out there. But all that is what I learned that somewhere in my mid 20s, early 30s was that, I'd say it was my early, because you were born when I was 30, so it was probably around then I started figuring out that that it's people wanting to change their mental state, their state. They're not happy with a certain state. They don't like it, so they want to change it. So they start drinking or doing drugs or doing something to get that high or feel better. We've talked about this a lot, where you have your basic human needs, and then beyond that, you want a few other things, and then beyond that, there's even more. And when you get to those other layers, what are you doing to get there? And I think that for me, fortunately for me, I figured out at a certain point that working hard gave me as much of a good kick as drinking or, getting high or whatever. So I think that those things are really important to keep in your life, that, hey, I can work through this. I can figure it, because it's going to get dark. I'm not telling you it's not going to. I've had days where I'm like, what am I doing? What am I trying to do this for? We lived in Holland. I mean, Holland is, if there's any people from Seattle or Portland that see this video and you know how bad your dark or your winters are, let me tell you what, throw some more wind and more rain in there and go out and hit balls. Yeah. It made me a really good, what that did, that hard work in those days, that made me a really good bad weather player. Yeah. I'd rather play in, I'd rather play in good weather, but when I'm playing a tournament, I have a massive advantage because I've spent so many hours hitting balls in wind and rain.
Yeah, no, I remember being in our little house in the Netherlands, and it would be 6:30, 7 o'clock. You know, it's still dark outside. And I remember mom would be making you a tea in one thermos and soup in another thermos. And you would head out to go and practice. And I remember you even saying, if I practice now when nobody else is, right? If I'm willing to do what nobody else is willing to do, I'll get what nobody else can have, right?
Exactly.
And there's another story, I've told it before, that I love about you. Charlie Munger says, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. And you used to, because you're a gamer, you used to do a lot of different things where, let's say you're working on your short game and you had to make a certain amount of putts. You'd have to make a certain amount of putts. And if you didn't hit it, the story was you had to make a certain amount of putts at one of your games and you didn't get it, the sun set, so you had no more light. What you did is you put money that was supposed to actually be like
five guilders. Which was a lot of money it was a lot of money when you had to buy diapers.
Yeah, so you put that in because the game was now you had to show back up
before the greenkeepers got there to get my money out in the morning and get my drill done.
Yeah, so you gamified it, right? You carried it and incentivized yourself. What about when you went through, when you declared you're 19 years old, you declare you're going to be a professional golfer. I'm sure a lot of people laughed at you. Yeah.
But that's as important as any part of it, making it public knowledge. If as soon as you get that, as soon as you make the public announcement, it puts more pressure on you. And it hopefully makes you work harder. Some people don't like that, but I think most people put it out there. Let people know. I mean, my brother laughed at me. He thought, I love my brother. He knew I was talented. He knew I could do stuff, but he thought I was crazy. And
you did it anyway, but you ended up doing it anyways.
Yeah. Go ahead. Ask a question.
The question I wanted to get to is you did it anyways. You got there. Then you got on the European tour. But then something crazy happened. You missed 17 cuts in a row.
All of them. Every single cut I could miss that tour. I played 17 tournaments, missed them all, 8 of them by a shot. And my buddies on tour, remember a guy from Australia. I think his name was Kenneth Trimble. Anyway, he's like, man, I don't know how you keep going. And I'm like, well, because I set a goal for myself and I know I can get better as long as I think my motto was, as long as I can see myself and feel myself still improving, I'm going to keep going after it. The dogged tenacity. I'm going to, okay, I wasn't hitting it far enough. How do I work on my club head speed, hit the driver further? I was hitting, too many, let's call it too many draws or hooks, and I wanted to have a controlled fade. I got to work more on my left hip turn to get that. I just kept working on stuff to make it tighter and better. And I think what it for me is, when I feel like I've hit a certain level and I can't get any better at it, that's when I might pivot. But until then, I'm not gonna give up. If I have a goal, I'm gonna go until I think your mom Erin's the same way, and that's why we're still married, because there's I could give you 10 things in the last 35 years. Either one of us could have said, hey, I'm out of here. But we're doggedly loyal and committed to we made a promise to ourselves on our wedding day to have open, honest communication and work through stuff and be lifelong learners. And we still, the best thing is we still really enjoy each other's company. We love going on hikes together. We love going cross-country skiing. We love going, take a family vacation, but take 3 or 4 days for ourselves on either end of the trip, so that we just like spending time together. We love getting up and having morning coffee for a half hour and talking about the day. It's as simple as that is. So that's important because most people fall in love and they have that, or you have a goal and you love that. How do you keep that fire going every day?
How do you?
How do I keep the fire going every day? Well, every day I wake up, I roll over and look at your mother and go, wow, she's still here. No. I feel extremely fortunate to have, found a partner in life. And someone that's willing to work at it as hard as I am, how do you keep going? You are constantly improving. Like I said with the golf swing, it's the same with your relationship. If either one of us just stops working on trying to be a better partner, better husband, better father to our kids, better grandfather, better communicator with her family, then I think she should go. But I think I'm willing to work that hard, and she's willing to work that hard. And you're all in. You're working on it step by step, and that's, again, we talked about in the beginning. Sure, the end in mind is one thing, but it's that sickening work ethic and the daily commitment to it that'll get you to the end.
Yeah, I think one thing I really look up to you guys for as well is not quitting when everybody else would quit, right? A lot of people, like you said, you had a bunch of friends say, hey, you just missed 17 cuts in a row, which means there's no money coming in. You finally realize the dream of being on the tour, but then you get hit with this huge roadblock of 17 cuts in a row, and I'm sure a ton of doubt, but you never quit. You stayed with it. And when, like you said, because growth plateaus, because you didn't quit, your next exponential moment happened. And then you had a stint where you were the #1 player in the Netherlands for a good time, and you started to really have some success, and you had a great career in that game. Tell me about when you're playing that game. You said what you just said earlier was you wanted to keep doing it until you felt like your growth was out. Tell me about what made you decide to pivot out of playing golf and into the next thing.
Well, like I said, I think I had some, when I was 35, 36, I had some decisions to make. This is one of those decisions that this is as a business partner, life partner, whatever. I look back at the decision I made to stop playing the tour. It was the right decision for myself and our family. The way I went about it, I didn't confide with my wife, my life partner. She'd put everything into that as well. You guys were on vacation here in the States, and I was in Holland. I missed the cut. I'm like, F this, I'm out of here. And
so you just decided in a moment?
No, it was brewing for a while, and a couple of my buddies on tour were getting divorced, and things were. I've been out here for so long. Do I want to keep doing this? Sure, I could stay out there and grind away, and you could. But I also knew there were other things I wanted to do in life, and thank goodness I've got a good business brain, and I took that, and again, your mother, my life partner, was willing to not be too mad at me for making the decision, and those are decisions you really should make together. And I should have made that with her, and then she supported me on that, and then we moved to the States to build this beautiful resort and place. That was hard. That was hard in the family. I mean, you guys were born and raised in Holland, and it was like she loved it there. She loved her job, and you move over here. But the pivot was, at that point, we were working on this place together. Actually, that was coaching in between. So we had that 6-year, 7-year coaching stint in between that went really well. I was still living in Holland, and then the opportunity came up here, and that. Yeah, it's just I look back at those things again. I've now been married more years than not, so 35 years married, 25 years before that, and I think I'm a better person through that whole marriage and through all that stuff. That's what helped all the different pivots. I think your mother would say the same thing. We both push each other to be better people. We know we're not even close to where either one of us can be or get. We can keep getting better. We're still working on all those things. But I think it's really important that you again have that end goal, and whatever it is, stick with it.
You told me that there was a moment in your career playing golf that you realized you weren't in the golf business. You were actually in the entertainment business.
Yes.
Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. So I think that people have fantasies like, oh, these professional football players or professional baseball players or golfers or, you know, I was a good athlete. I was good enough growing up, and you get out there on tour, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this isn't what I thought. Everyone out here is a good golfer. Everyone out here is a good athlete.
Yeah, it's the 1% of the 1%.
Yes, and then all of a sudden, you got to figure out, how do I become, you know, professional golfer, professional athlete? I'm supposed to make money doing this, and I was like I said, a journeyman, a really decent player out there. Again, the 1% of the 1%. How do I make more money? How do I? And then I started looking around and going like, you know, these guys are great golfers. They're making good money doing this. But the most successful ones at that time, you know, Greg Norman was #1 in the world. Seve was #1 in the world for a period of time. But Greg Norman and Seve from Spain, Greg Norman from Australia, became huge in their countries. And they knew how to take what they were doing and turn it into business ventures and turn it into that. So I was watching that, learning from that. How do you do that? You know, being the top player in Holland, Holland's a very small, industrious country with a lot of great businesses. And I started figuring out, how do I meet these people? How do I, and that's when I was entertaining. I mean, literally you're entertaining the captains of industry. I had O'Neill, Benelux clothing. I had, first I had Volvo, then I had Mercedes-Benz for a car. I had different bag contracts. And then our business partner, Willem Willemstein, I met him in a Pro-Am as well, because I was in the entertainment business. If I'd just been playing as a golfer and just kind of ignoring him, because when I first turned on tour, all I wanted to do was work on my own game.
Win. And you just wanted to win on tour.
I just wanted to win. I just wanted to, you know, but I was forgetting about these people, including Willem or people watching TV, they're paying for me to play. So if I don't entertain them, they don't want to, you know, the guy's paying, you know, whatever amount of money to play a Pro-Am with you. You better entertain him for the day. Because I was willing to do that, because I was willing to, you know, I could have a conversation with him afterward. And these are just things you learn. You just figure out, hey, this guy, if you're going to a business meeting, find something about the guy ahead of time. Do a little research. This guy's in the oil industry. What can I talk to him about? I'm playing with this guy, and ask him questions. The great questions are, how'd you start your business? How'd you get into the business? How'd you be curious to those people? They love that. Yeah. They'll tell you everything. So that once I figured that out, I was able to, you know, at the end of my career, I was making more money in sponsor money and coaching and entertaining people, playing Pro-Ams than I was playing. And again, that helped me get to the next step.
Yeah. But one of the things that I also loved about you is you became the first professional golfer to be sponsored by O'Neill. You took your personality in golf, and you know, the surfing personality, you became the first golfer to be sponsored by O'Neill. And so it's one of those things where you can pave your own way, create relationships, and you never know what's going to happen from it, right?
Right.
We were always decked out in O'Neill stuff as little kids.
It was great though. I mean, because again, that's looking at your resources and things around you and saying, hey, I got this persona. I had long hair flowing, you know, I didn't fit the golf mold as far as, you know, the stuffy grandfather's country club. And these guys were, you know, O'Neill surf stuff from California. The Dutch guy had the rights to the Benelux, and he was just started making some golf polos and some, you know, golf shirts and pants. And he's like, lived in the same town, and I was able to get a meeting with him. I kept bugging him to get a meeting with him. And I gave him my plan and said, look, I'm not trying to, again, I wasn't initially trying to make money off of them. I said, look, my goal, again, if somebody sees how hard you're working and sees your goal and they're a business person, they'll help you out. And I'm like, the guy's name was Theo Dietz. And I was like, Theo, I'm the only guy from Holland that has a tour card right now. My goal is to get in the top 50 on tour. I have this step. I have this plan. I don't need to make money off my sponsor right now. I need to cover my costs to be out on tour because it's expensive. and I'm traveling every week. And I said, I need to get 2 or 3 sponsors for this amount. And he was like, sure, I'll 3-year deal. It took me 2 or 3 months to get a meeting with him. But once I got the meeting with him, I went in there and sold the product with a plan. I had a whole plan. I had it back then. We didn't have Excel. I had just a written out 2 or 3 pages, made copies of it, gave it to him, showed him my business plan on the old ledger sheets, how I was going to make it pencil. Business guys love that. They want to see, okay, this young kid, I think I was, at that point, I was 24 or 5. And he's like, this guy's got a plan. He's got ambition. He wants to go somewhere. My company's doing well. I can see some synergy because I can get into a different segment of the market that's affluent. Golf's affluent. And I can sell some golf shirts there and some other stuff. And it worked out great because I, being the top golfer in Holland, I got on the cover of the Dutch Golf Journal, which is like a Golf Digest in Holland, once a quarter in those formative years. So he was decked out in O'Neill clothing. And O'Neill's, they like big, bold stuff. So I had like a huge fluorescent patch on my back that, it was just not, and all my buddies on tour. And then I got Sony. So my nickname for a while was Sony O'Neill because I was sponsored by Sony and O'Neill. And anyway, so that's just a sidebar. Sorry about that.
No, I think that one of the key things when you want to get something, what I love about you and what you've instilled in me is, and you're harder, like you're very hard headed at this, is you do not take no for an answer. When you believe something and you want something, I've watched you not like run through walls to get it, not take no for an answer. If somebody says no, you say, how, and you just keep trying to find a pivot. Like no is not an answer for you. It's how do we get this and make it happen. And I've really cherished and loved that about you. We touched on the career playing side. I want to hit on the coaching piece. So you stopped playing and then you pivoted into coaching.
Yep.
At that time, like you said, the Netherlands is a small country. There was talent there, but no real structure. What did you do from when you started that coaching career and you had your 6-7 years stint there and then winning the World Cup? So from talent, but no structure, no wins ever, to winning the World Cup. What was that like? Talk us through that journey.
So what again, back to my own career and back to your mom, she was great at looking at the process. Jack Nicklaus wrote a book back in the day called Golf My Way by Jack Nicklaus. Everybody read it. And even though there's multiple body types, you shouldn't always swing the same way. And Jack sold lots of copies of that. I wrote my own little book in one of those composition notebooks, took my own pictures of my own swing and swings I liked, and I called it Golf My Way by Chris Vanderbilt. What I realized in that process was there were several categories. And from that, I developed a thing in Holland called Total Golf. And that I broke the full swing down into several categories. Short game into, I think there were 22 or 3 tests I could do. Putting was down into 8. Then I did mental and course management, and then diet and physical fitness. So I took all 5 of those categories. I called it Total Golf. Started making spreadsheets. That's when Excel started coming. So at least I had that going. And I did it with you with soccer. I did a total soccer planning for you. But I had to break down each player. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And how are we going to make them better? And then I would go and I'd enlist their local club pro because they were obviously good enough to be talented enough to get into the selection. So they had good training from a pro. Rather than me against him, it was like, how do I work with this guy to figure out a plan for X player? And then how do I figure out with this pro for Y player to make them better? And we just took this program of Total Golf, which is just more or less, it's an analysis program. What's good, what's not good, how are we going to fix it? And broke down categories. I took stats that basically said this is a top player on tour. They would hit, the top driver on tour was about 82% fairways in regulation all year long. And that's a lot. I mean, if you think about it, it's hitting, really 9 or 10 fairways around every round you play. Maybe it's 10 or 11, I can't remember. But you're just pounding fairways. Back in the day, that was Calvin Pete. Now you got other guys that are out there just dead straight. If you're not super long, you better be straight because the rough will kill you. So all those different little things, broke it down, found a good player, was a good ball striker. His short game wasn't so good, so we're going to work on that. So what I did was I just took this analysis of all the players. I knew for myself, back to Greg Norman, there was an article, a little blurb in one of the magazines back in the day. They asked him what his success was. He goes, short game's everything. Because he was the best ball striker in the world, kind of like Tiger was, best ball striker in the world at that period of time. But under pressure, being able to get it up and down, you're going to miss a green every once in a while. Can you get a shot up and down? Can you hold that putt when you need to? Just ask Rory. He missed a couple this year at the end.
Yeah,
because I think again he's such a talented player, and you know I've never been in that pressure that he's under for the U.S. Open, but I if he's honest with himself, and I've watched it a couple times, the replays. I don't know if he wasn't committed or what he did. If I was coaching him, it'd be like, hey, were you committed on those putts? Did you make it? Did you commit to what your routine was? Because for the first 69 holes of the tournament, you were by far the best player out here. You were committed to every shot. It looked like you got a little doubt in your head. And I'm sure he doesn't want to hear that. It's not from a 60-year-old club pro from Central Oregon right now. But that's what it comes down to, and being real with yourself. So when I was coaching, I was like, I had to hold the players accountable. We make an agreement. We figure things out. I want you to work on this for the next 2 weeks, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. And with the club pro. And then you can tell if you gave them a new keep your hands forward through impact drill and they didn't do it. I mean, if you're talented enough to be out there and I give you a drill, you should be able to fix it in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then I know then I'll hold you accountable for it. That's the other part. Hold yourself accountable. I'm gonna get up, and like you said, I'm gonna get up at 6:30 and make some tea and some soup, or go to the range and hit balls and put that $5 in the cup and get it out the next day. But you have to do that. And what I feel the best about is I was able to do that with some really talented players. We won the World Cup. Right now on the European Tour, there's still 3 or 4 guys that I coached, and it's fun to see them out there. Hopefully they're using some of this. I know they're using some of the stuff that I gave them, but that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, what I hear you say there is study the best. It's a dance between talent, the art, but also having a plan, like the science side of having a plan. So study the best, what they're doing, what their percentages are. So what their percentages are for hitting the fairway, what their percentages are for, getting up and down, and break it down then into inputs. So you know what the best are doing, then be brutally honest with yourself. Yep. You're going to mirror the best. You want to become the best, you're going to mirror it. Then be brutally honest with yourself and compare your percentages. How many times are you hitting it? Is it 75%? Okay, you need to work on this a little bit. And then just be brutally honest and accountable about the plan and executing it.
That's it. And that's the same with business. It's the same with anything else you do, because that's kind of what I've done here at Erin and I did that at Tetherow, and we're still doing it. We're still evolving the business and looking at this is where we want to go. And, we did get to the best in the Pacific Northwest. How do we maintain that? How do we keep getting better? We go on trips and we go to another hotel and we look at stuff we think is cool. A lot of people call it research and development. We call it rip off and duplicate.
Yeah, that's right.
It works. Right. Rip off and duplicate works great. R&D is, but it's because you're seeing what you said. You see the best thing. You see a really cool aspect. You see a little different twist on a turn down service for nighttime, and that's cool. Can we implement that at our place? Maybe, maybe not. And then you have to analyze it and say, what can I do to get to where I want to go? Yeah.
What do you think, because essentially you've had to reinvent yourself through each one. You, like at the beginning, you were actually a runner. You were a strong runner. You reinvented yourself. Then you had to become a coach. You reinvented yourself. Then now you became a business owner. You reinvented yourself. What do you think some of those steps are when you're going through that? What are the keys to doing that?
Well, I'm going to go back to my childhood, and there's 2 things. I already told you about my mom being so competitive. Yeah. So that gave me this fight fight thing. Just don't take no for an answer. My dad, and I've talked about this a lot with you. You got to start with believing in yourself. And where does that come from? Believe in yourself or nobody else will. And when you figure out, yeah, I can do this, and it doesn't have to be like overnight you're going to be mega millionaire, but it's what little steps. Confidence is nothing more than focusing on what has to happen, what the task at hand to get your desired outcome. Might not always get your desired outcome. I've missed a lot of putts in my career. The ones that I just talked about, Rory, was he focused on the task at hand, or was he distracted by, oh, I'm going to win the US Open if I make this putt? Because if you're thinking about the other thing, that's not confident. That's what I think. I'm not going to call it choking, because I've never been in his situation, but you're not focused on the task at hand. That's belief. To me, if you're working on these things and you are focused and you don't get the desired outcome, pivot, do something else. But again, figure out what works, that next step. My dad taught me that, if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't work, from my mom, the hard work of getting in there, and it doesn't have to, even if you come from a family that doesn't have that, look at people around you that might have it. I mean, there's so many success stories out there in the world. I know Will Smith's not the most politically correct person in the world, but read his story. It's a phenomenal story. How hard that guy had to work to get where he was. Read Muhammad Ali. Read Tom Brady's stuff. I mean, nobody believed in Tom Brady except for Tom Brady. I mean, like we're talking about, 2 or 3 things. I bet you if you look up in soccer, Beckham, or you look up, the stories of all these successful, I'm talking about athletes, but also look up Warren Buffett. I don't know. Look up his story. Read about what he did. Read about, always keep learning, but start with something. And I am fortunate. I am very fortunate that I got this belief system from my dad and the competitiveness from my mom and a very, sharp mind that I can keep pushing myself forward with. Some good physical talent, enough to get on tour, enough to be that 1%. But I believe in human nature. I believe in humans. And if you aren't as talented or doing something that you figure out what you want to do and keep working to get to it, because you will get there. I mean, you can, don't want to say don't kid yourself and think you can be, even if you look at the best models and movie stars, they've had to work hard. Read Matthew McConaughey's story. I mean, there's crazy stuff out there that these people had to go through to get there.
Yeah, he's got a great book called Green Lights.
Yeah. Read it. That's the stuff you got to do.
Yeah. One thing that you told me and taught me was that, and it aligns with believe in yourself, that there's no such thing as a player or a person. Yeah. There's no such thing as a hot streak. The hot streak is a player playing over his head. That's what it is. So there's no such thing as a player playing over his or her head. A hot streak is simply just a glimpse of your true potential.
That's correct.
Yeah.
100%. And I can tell you that's harder to believe because it happens. I mean, I still have it. I still have it where I'll make 6 birdies in a row on the course. And that just means I can make 6 birdies in a row.
Yeah.
It's that hot streak, and a lot of people get a little bit afraid of that success. And they think, oh, am I that good? Am I that? Again, what's the step? What's the belief system? How do you believe in yourself? Yeah, I did that. I can do it again. What did I work on? What were the fundamentals I was working on leading up to that tournament, leading up to that round? What was my mindset when I went on that hot streak? How do I look at, what are the fundamental basic stuff we're doing in business right now that's making Tetherow successful? So you have your key data metrics, you have your KPIs. You're looking at your total revenue. What's your cost of labor? What's your cost of sales? And am I managing that properly? Am I coaching my managers to manage their departments? If you want to scale and you want to grow, you better be able to train people underneath you to have those same insights and instincts. Otherwise, it starts to collapse and crumble underneath you, because you need people that can actually understand your vision and your mission. That the book Traction, you turn me on to that. It's another one of those books where you have to have that game plan.
100%. As we wrap up, because I know we've just got an hour here, like I said at the beginning, you have been, for me, the number one idol, the number one male idol I have. Mom is the number one female idol I have. And you've not only showed yourself and the people around you that when you have a dream, you can execute it, like we talked about in golf, in coaching, and in business. You've showed that and led by example and action that you can make it happen. Each one of your dreams that you've set out have become true. So my last question for you as we wrap up, since each one of those have come true, what is next for you now?
Well, next one is I got to get the 60K done, because I set a goal for myself this year. What's next? I think as I get into I'm in my 7th decade now. My goal is to figure out ways to really enjoy my life, my family, kids, grandkids, nurture people, go forward. At the same time, keep my business going in a way that, one of my favorite things, if you're not growing, you're dying. It's Darwinism. Darwin was just brilliant man, obviously. And I think to just keep pushing myself to grow in the business realm, in my relationship realm. And I'm actually filled with more energy now. I'm as energetic now as I was when I was your age, when I was 30. I get up every day and I'm like, okay, what's next? What am I doing? I'm going to go for a run, or I'm going to go work out. I'm going to go climbing gym. I'm sure it'll come up and I'll figure out exactly what business venture I want. But I think it's finding a way to embrace the day, embrace it with something, whether it's, I didn't always have that. I was always looking forward, was chasing stuff. Now I'm like, I'm really working hard on, hey, I'm going to embrace this moment with you, with your siblings, with your kids. I want if your kids come over, I want to spend really good time with them.
Yeah,
and that's it. So I think that's the same with business and life. I mean, I'd like to get that to my immediate team around me, that people feel good that they've got my attention and they're getting what they need too. So.
Good. Well, I can't wait to see it unfold, Pop. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. It means the world to me. It'll be a fun little time capsule for us. And I just appreciate everything you've done for us as your children and the community that you're in. You're a true leader, somebody who lives the win-win mindset. And I love you very much. I love you too. And you have that same thing. You have that charisma, and you have an ability to inspire people, because you've inspired the whole running thing. I mean, I was running when I was a kid. You got me going again. So thank you for that. Thank you for being an inspiration, and just keep being a good man. All right. And with that, guys, we will see you on the next one.